The ground beneath Venezuela shook twice within less than a minute, creating an unusually rare seismic sequence that has drawn significant attention from earthquake researchers around the world. Reports and videos from affected areas showed buildings shaking, structural cracking, and damage to several properties across the region. What unfolded that Wednesday evening was not a typical earthquake event. It was something far less common, and understanding what actually happened and why it matters is exactly what this video is here to do. Welcome to Strategic Dynamics Edge, where we break down the biggest global events so you walk away actually understanding what happened and why it matters. If you are new here, subscribe right now and turn on notifications. Every video we put out gives you the context that most coverage skips. Now, let us get into what happened in Venezuela. Before we go any further, this video summarizes publicly available information from official sources, including the United States Geological Survey and reports available at the time of coverage. Casualty figures, structural damage assessments, and relief operations were still developing when this was produced. This video is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered emergency guidance. Always rely on official authorities and credible news organizations for the most current updates. Now, Venezuela, Wednesday evening. 2 earthquakes struck the same region of the country in rapid succession. The first registered at a magnitude of 7.2, with an epicenter recorded approximately 21 kilometers west of a coastal town in Venezuela. That alone qualifies as a major earthquake by any standard measure used in seismology. But before conditions had any chance to stabilize, a second earthquake struck, this one measuring a magnitude of 7.5, approximately 45 kilometers from the first. According to the United States Geological Survey, the gap between these 2 events was 39 seconds. That is the critical detail that sets this event apart from a standard earthquake sequence. In Caracas, the Venezuelan capital, the impact was felt almost immediately. Residents across the city experienced intense shaking. Reports and footage from the area showed visible cracks in the sides of residential buildings. Ceiling materials came down inside homes and businesses. Shelves inside local stores emptied onto floors during the shaking. One resident described the sensation as standing in water with wave-like movement beneath their feet. Another described watching an entire wall section surrounding a staircase shift and crack from the floor upward. These accounts, while individual and anecdotal, reflect a pattern of structural stress consistent with an earthquake of this magnitude, striking an urban area. Initial reports also indicated structural damage in several buildings across affected areas, including partial roof failures and crumbling in some older structures. Damage assessment teams were working to understand the full scope of what occurred in the hours following the event. What made this event particularly notable is that the tremors were experienced far beyond Venezuela's borders. Residents across the border in Colombia, including in the capital city of Bogotá, reported feeling strong shaking. The fact that effects were registered at that distance from the epicenter reflects the scale of energy involved in this seismic sequence. Millions across the affected region experienced the shaking, and the cross-border reach of the tremors underscored how significant an event this was in geographic terms. Now, here's the element that makes this event genuinely important from a scientific standpoint. Geologists classify what happened as a doublet earthquake, and events like this are of significant interest to seismologists because doublet earthquakes are relatively uncommon. Understanding what a doublet is helps explain why the sequence caused the level of impact it did. In a typical earthquake event, one primary rupture occurs along a fault line. That main shock is then followed by a series of smaller aftershocks, which gradually decrease in intensity over time. That is the sequence most people are familiar with. A doublet earthquake is fundamentally different. It involves 2 separate earthquakes of comparable magnitude occurring in close geographic proximity within a very short time interval. They are not the same event. They are not a main shock followed by an aftershock. They are 2 distinct ruptures, each one capable of causing major damage independently, arriving so close together that the second strikes before any response to the first is possible. This distinction carries serious practical consequences. When a magnitude 7.2 earthquake strikes, structures throughout the affected area absorb significant stress. Walls develop cracks, foundations shift, support systems weaken. Buildings that remain standing are often in a compromised state they were not in before the shaking began. When a second earthquake of magnitude 7.5 arrives 39 seconds later, it strikes those already weakened structures. What may have held through the first event may not hold through the second. This cumulative effect on infrastructure is a key reason doublet sequences tend to produce disproportionate damage relative to either earthquake occurring alone. The complications extend to emergency response as well. Personnel responding to a first earthquake are operating in an environment that is struck again before any assessment of conditions is complete. Search and rescue workers, evaluation teams, anyone moving through damaged areas, all of them face a second wave of danger before any kind of organized response to the first event is established. This is what geologists mean when they describe doublet earthquakes as complicating relief and rescue operations. It is not just the physical damage that compounds, it is the response window that collapses. The United States Geological Survey confirmed the full sequence. A magnitude 7.2 earthquake followed 39 seconds later by a magnitude 7.5 earthquake approximately 45 kilometers away. That confirmation is meaningful to the scientific community. Doublet earthquakes remain an area of active research. The conditions under which certain fault systems produce doublets, rather than a single main shock and aftershock sequence, are not fully understood. What triggers the second rupture? Why does it occur where it does? These questions matter for how seismologists model earthquake risk in vulnerable regions. Events like what occurred in Venezuela provide data that contributes directly to that research. For the people living through it, the science is secondary. What matters in those moments is whether the structure above you is still standing, whether your family is accounted for, whether the building you're in will hold through the night. For many residents across the affected areas of Venezuela, those questions were deeply uncertain in the hours following both events. Reports of structural damage continued to come in. Initial assessments were underway. The full picture of what this unusual seismic sequence left behind was still being established. What this event does is remind us that geological forces operate on their own schedule and according to their own rules. Doublet earthquakes are rare. Two earthquakes of near comparable magnitude, striking within 39 seconds of each other, is not something most emergency systems are specifically designed to handle. And when it happens in a densely populated region, the consequences become both a human and a scientific story worth understanding. If this video helped you understand what happened and why this particular sequence matters beyond a standard earthquake report, take 10 seconds right now and share it with someone who follows global events. Drop a comment below. I want to know whether you think earthquake-prone countries are doing enough to prepare infrastructure for events like this one. Your comments help this channel reach more people who are looking for coverage that actually explains the full picture. And if you are not subscribed yet, now is the time. The next video is already being built and you do not want to miss it. Stay informed. Stay sharp. This is Strategic Dynamics Edge.